Hey, coffee experts. Those of you running independent coffee shops, you're always looking for ways that you can drop your costs. And we here at the Coffee Experts Club really understand that. And so we've started something called Indie Coffee Coalition. And what it's designed to do is to drop your costs on two of the things that you're probably experiencing the highest sales volume in your store. And that is energy drink and frat mix. Those two line items, we've created our own products and are offering you those products at a reduced cost so that you can cut out the Red Bull of America. You can cut out the main lines of energy drinks that you're doing and serve your own energy drink at a reduced cost on a line item that you're probably already making a lot of sales on anyway. The best way that you can grow sales is by dropping your costs and maintaining a current volume. So check us out at indiecoffee.co and we'll love to tell you more there.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Coffee Experts Club. So we're doing, Drew. All I know is we were trying to schedule yesterday, Ben. We were going to record it without you because you're like, hey, I can't pull it off. We were going to do it, me and Drew, and he's like, internet sucks in Belize. Couldn't record. So I think Drew, we hurt for you, man. We feel for you living in tropical paradise. And sometimes you don't always have premier internet.
I'm trying to get that Elon Musk hookup, so we'll see what happens.
Ben and I told you before you went back your last trip, stuff that thing in your bag, get it down there. Let's get you good internet.
It literally is backpack sized.
What TSA would say about me passing that through the scanner.
They don't care. Anyway, coffee experts. Great to see you guys today. Appreciate you, Ben and Drew, for being here. Those of you tuning in today, man, if you're looking for a way just to know how to grow, I think it's a great place to start. If you're thinking about starting a coffee shop, if you know somebody who's thinking about starting a coffee shop, push them our way. We'd love to talk to them here on Coffee Experts. And, we've been collecting questions. I don't know if you watch us on the socials, So if you're keeping an eye on Facebook, IG, we're dropping comments like, so, hey, you thinking about starting a coffee shop? Comment here. We're going to answer your questions. And we've gotten some questions that have come back that we're going to talk about today. So if you're ever just looking for good insights on what to do, where to start, how it works, this is a great spot. And then obviously we've talked about it too. Like if you want to escalate from here, we offer Coffee Experts Academy, which is 35 weeks of content, 35 modules of content all around, like each level 1, level 2, level 3. How do you grow your business? So we're Coffee Experts. We're grateful to have you guys here. Ben and Drew, it's always such an honor to talk to you guys. A lot of the questions we got this week was around cost. So maybe we could talk today about how much does it cost to start a coffee shop and where do you start the conversation?
Yep. That's especially in today's day and age, in today's economy, that's like the number one thing on people's mind is, I'd love to do this, but like, can I even afford to do this? Can I afford to have this dream? I know it's a question in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, it's true. And Ben, your hair, I got to say, is looking exceptional today. You look very, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it.
He's a taken man, bro. He's a taken man. He's a father. He's a father of one. You got to back this thing down.
Oh man. And there's been various stories I've read of people who have these crazy ideas to do something that just seems unrealistic to them, and one of the things that consistently that I see that they ask themselves is, how can I get creative with making this happen? And I think a lot of us get stuck in like the traditional, I need to get a loan or I need to get the money, from making it myself and saving it over a decade or two or whatever that looks like. But really one of the things that I think the stress of deciding all of these things puts you into traps us into thinking only of traditional ways when there's a whole spectrum of ways that we can achieve these things.
Yeah. We can talk really philosophically. A lot of times people are like, yeah, but what's the brass tacks? So brass tacks, if you're thinking about building a building, I usually will tell people probably somewhere around 200 to 300K, just the building, right? Just foundation and up, raw building costs. And maybe you're like, wait a minute, on a little 900 square foot coffee stand, I'm going to pay for 200 to 300K. Like that always is a surpriser when I talk to people about it, but it is like, that's just what it is. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to think it's right. But if you send it out to bid, that's what you're going to get back. And people are like, well, can't I just buy one of those like roadside barns that we can put on the side of the road and retrofit it to make it look. And my encouragement to you is, would you buy coffee out of something that look like that? Like what our experience is when you try and cut corners on how good you make your place of business look, what it usually generates is your customer base is that kind of a customer, which means not going to spend very much money, not going to come back very consistently, not going to tip very well, which are all ways that you make money. So I think going into it, if you're going to build, just know that that's what it is. Now, I don't think building is the only way. So if you hear that and
Mhm.
you're like, blah, 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 Aaron, way to just hose down my whole dream. I don't have 200K or 300K. That's okay. We have other conversations we're going to talk about today. But I would say, like Drew said, there are lots of different ways that you can start coffee. So let's kick it off, guys. Let's talk about maybe some of the ways, and maybe we started on the cheap, and then how do we work our way up? Maybe let's just talk about it. I know we round robin a couple different ideas before we started. Let's talk about where we're fitting.
Sure. I mean, I would say, even based off of the conversations we've had over the previous weeks and the guests we've had on, I mean, the
Yeah,
lowest entry point is a coffee cart or a coffee truck.
yeah,
That's going to
yeah,
be your lowest barrier to entry when it comes to cost. It just depends on, are you really sold or stuck on, I want a physical building, or do I want something mobile? Because if you are open to either side of that, then mobile is sure. I mean, from the last guest we had on, it was the way she started out. It built her brand in her community. And the minute she put down a brick and mortar, like, she was off to the races because people
yep.
knew who she was already. So that's a really low cost to enter, compared to, yeah, 200, like $300,000 to build a buildings. I'm sorry for anybody who's got 300 grand just sitting in their savings account. Good job. For one,
Right.
why are you starting a coffee company if you got 300K in cash? So a coffee cart or truck is a much, much easier, much smaller bite to bite off than that 300K.
I mean, Susan Arredondo, that was our guest. If you missed that just
Mhm.
from a few sessions back, man, go check that out. Good Grounds Coffee, located in Adair Village up near Corvallis. She's doing a great thing, super smart lady, but she did start that direction. I think it's probably good for us to talk about, even though the currency of what a spend is, right? Because I think all of us equate it to cash. Or like Ben, you just said, if you have 300K cash, what are you doing starting a coffee shop? I mean, like and then there's some things that could be said to that, but think about this way as well is sometimes it's not all about the money that you have either. Sometimes it's that you have an advantage in your age or in your strength. Like there are people that are older that are maybe listening to this and they're like, "Hey, I'm looking for a good investment partner to find that I can be a funding partner because they have sweat equity they can put into it. They
Mhm.
have a strong back. They've got some great insight. I don't know anything about coffee, maybe they say, but I've got money in reserves. And on the flip side of that, you have young people that are like, I want to go start a business. And they're thinking they've got to come up with it all on their own, not realizing, no, they bring a lot to the table in that they're young people and they've got the ability to put their back into it and they're willing to. And that, we talked a little bit about Susan's trailer. And like she said towards the end of the conversation, that one of her limitations with the trailer is like you really need to be taking on more and more events. And as somebody she's trying to commit to the brick and mortar side, it makes it hard because she's torn. And so, man, my recommendation to her was, man, maybe you should think about a partnership with a young couple that is willing to put some sweat equity into it. And you're able to multiply by 3 or 4 or 5 times the amount of events you're doing because they're willing to do it and they're not as distracted with a brick and mortar like you are. And then you're able to make a great income off it. You can maybe do some rev share with them where they make some profit, maybe not just trade hours for dollars. So there's opportunities where you can trade in equity that's sweat equity, that's young energy equity, that's knowledge based equity that might not even necessarily be dollars and cents. So there's partnership opportunities out there too that you would just have to give your time and your energy and have the right agreement with.
Yeah, I think Drew said it's all about getting creative. I mean, it's very hard to kind of switch that mindset when it comes to business, because our generation and older, business was, you go to the bank, you get a loan, you
Yep.
find a door in a strip mall, you find a door on the street in your downtown, and you put a business there and you hope people walk in. Like, that's how, we've learned how you start a business. Like, you can get way more creative than that, especially when it comes from the funding side, like you said, or partnering up with somebody, or, having an angel investor, networking with people who have maybe those cash reserves, or are looking to invest, retirement, and just have like an income check that comes into them. They don't want any operational responsibility. They just want to be able to say, hey, I want somewhere to put my money. I know it's going to grow because that is a good business, or it's got a great idea. There's also going in and taking over another coffee company that has owners who are looking to retire. I mean, some folks, they've been in the coffee world for a long time. They would love to just retire and maybe get a portion, a percentage of the profits, or maybe even sell to somebody. You can come in and say, hey, look, you've got a great location. You've got a couple shops. Let me come in and work and slowly buy you out. And I'll take all the operational responsibility. I'll slowly buy you out over time, over the next 5 years. And then you can walk away with a great paycheck and I can walk away with a great new company. Like if you can get creative like that, all it takes is somebody going, hey, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do it.
Yeah. And I mean, partnering with somebody who's younger, has ambition, or starting bare bones, starting bare minimum, there's a kind of magic to it, because you can buy the nicest espresso machine, you can build the nicest building, but that's not going to guarantee that you're going to have the nicest coffee, or the nicest service. And was Dutch Bros started with just a coffee cart, and they worked their way up into this massive corporation. And I think, working from the ground up is going to show you a lot of ways to get creative, to build that business, to build that brand, and to teach yourself these things. And those young, ambitious people are going to, I mean, we have some people in our company here, De Las Mayas, who see a need and fill a need, something that we don't see because we're not always there. Or, I mean, we're old dogs now in the coffee game, and things are changing. If it's in the staff or changing in the equipment or changing with the beans that we have, that a younger mind is going to grab onto these things and find new solutions. And so all that to say, these new and creative solutions are born out of problems that may arise because you're starting bare bones, you're starting with the basics and then building your way up into something bigger.
I think it's important too to realize. So we've talked about some different currencies, right? There's the currency of cash. There's the currency of sweat equity, right? And there's partnerships that you can form. Those are all ways that you can come up off the ground. We talked about coffee carts, right? And we dug pretty deep into coffee carts, trailers, brick and mortars a couple weeks ago. So I'm not going to probably labor that a ton, but like Ben was saying, there's acquisition stuff, you know what I mean? Where it's like people are looking to get out of it. It doesn't have to be like 2 or 3 shops. I mean, that was Roaster's jam, right? Back in the day was they took on an aging out like coffee business that was in town. Drew and I get offers like that to this day, where it's like people are like, hey, we would like you to consider coming and taking this on. And it's a great way for expansion. It just is a question of where are you at in your business model? Like, where are you at as a person? So maybe there are businesses out there that you could age into or that you could acquire. I know that things that Drew and I have considered is, okay, so as we're investing capital back into the business, Drew and I have decided we're not buying land right now. Like that's not an option right now because land is so expensive, but we'll build our buildings on somebody else's land called a land lease, right? We'll do a land lease. So a lot of times land leases are much more approachable, right? Because all the owner has to do is maybe some grading, and tying in some utilities. And once the utilities there, we'll drop the building on, we'll tie our building in, and then they've got a paycheck coming in on really just a piece of dirt that they had to do some minimal work on. So like we're looking for land leases so that we don't lock up a bunch of capital so that the more and more revenue, Drew and I aren't taking any money out of the business for the first 3 years, So like we're putting it all back into growth and expansion. Like that's a way to do it. There's also, besides land leases, which is a cheaper way to do it, you still have to build though, right? So there's some building cost. If another cheaper way to do it than that would be if you go into build to suits. So build to suits will require you to obviously have to convince them to allow you to come in and convince them of the viability of your business idea, but they'll build the unit to suit what you want. And then your rent's going to be higher, right? Because the lease that you're paying on has to cover the capital that they put in on your part as a developer to build it out the way that you wanted it to be. And most people, when they're doing a build to suit, are going to do what they call a vanilla shell. Well, they'll put up the building, but they're going to want you to package it on the interior to be the way that your particular coffee shop is. Some owners will give you like an ownership stipend, you know what I mean? Where they'll say, hey, we'll do a build a suit stipend where we'll give you vanilla shell and this much towards the interior, because maybe you want certain fixtures to look the way you want to. You want the toilets, the sinks to all look a certain way based on other things that you're putting in, or maybe they know there are fixtures that really should be the landlord's responsibility. They'll give you that. Not everybody does. Some people do. But then you need to come into it probably thinking, it's probably going to cost me 50, 60K maybe to finish this thing out the way I want to. And then equipment cost, right? Like I'm going to have to put my equipment cost in it too, which I would say on the low end of equipment, Drew, what would you say? Maybe like 30K on the low end of equipment up to maybe 100K, depending on if you're going used versus new. Drew, you're in the trenches with new versus used. So maybe you want to have some conversations with new versus used, because we tried to do it on the cheaper so that we could put more into the building. But I know that that's cost Drew some sweat equity. Drew, can you hear me well enough that you can reply to that one?
It's probably cost me a couple of years off my life and stress. It's been a passion project. So what is a year of your life worth? Take that into account. Yeah. I mean, 30K bare minimum. but realize that's probably going to cost you some fix-it costs in the long run. There's some really nice refurbished equipment that you could find out there. There's some really nice skeletons of equipment you could find out there that if you have the know-how or if you know somebody, you can pay them to help rebuild it. Well, there's going to be some cheaper ways. I wouldn't recommend out the gate buying brand new equipment just because it is a huge cost, So buy
Mhm.
something that can run for a year, for 2 years, or something you can rebuild and just improve. The first couple of years, you'll hopefully make your money back on that equipment. So things like espresso machines, things like grinders, things like, you're going to have your blenders, you're going to have your commercial grinder, you're going to have all of these things. Some things I would definitely recommend purchasing a refurbished piece or learning what it takes, speaking with whatever rep or speaking with whatever tech person you might know to know that it's rebuilt properly and bench tested and all that
Mhm.
good stuff. But yeah, low end 30K. I'd recommend probably spend it a little bit more than that just to guarantee you don't have late nights where your boilers need,
I was gonna say that's after 3 years of Drew just getting punched in the mouth over and over again on trying to fix this stuff. Cause De Los Mayas, like we had to come into Belize with all cash, right? You can't take loans. You're not using credit cards. Like people want you to start cash, So it's like we had to squirrel all of our money away to deploy it in Belize to spend it that way. So it meant that we had to do things cheaper than others. And Drew's not joking. Like our espresso machine at location number 2 broke down on day 2. It was day 3 of grand opening, which is like any of us that know grand openings, like worst
Ugh.
time ever to have your espresso machine go down. And it was I think it was the most stressful day of my life. Like it was so stressful to get the other machine from inland all the way back to the coast and back to the island in a time that we weren't losing momentum with customers. And I think we did it pretty well. We turned it in less than a day, but still
Yeah.
was really stressful to happen. And that was because we had a machine on reserve. So I think as you're buying machines, as you're thinking through machines, Drew, wouldn't you say if you're going to buy used equipment, always maybe have a backup because you're probably going to be dealing with fixes. And Drew, I know it's not a lie, bro. You've taken years off of your life and spent many a midnight session pulling apart machines. And I will say this. I don't think that you were born a tech or you were trained to be a tech. You've been trained to be a tech through the school of hard knocks. Will you attest to that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, if you're going to buy something used, I would read through forums. The biggest thing that you're probably going to want to know how to work on is your espresso machine. Like
Yep.
a grinder is easy. A blender you're probably just going to replace. But the espresso machine is an intricate, very special and pivotal part of your whole operation. So if you're going to go with a refurbished piece, at least maybe have a backup, or one that you can pull vital pieces off of, which you can learn through forums, you can learn through asking us. What are those vital pieces? What are the things that commonly go out? But if you are going to go on the cheaper end of, say your espresso machine, by buying a refurbished one, I would do my research on what things go out and what does it cost to have a backup on hand and how do I fix that? Because really, I mean, the cheaper you go, I mean, you get what you pay for, you know what I mean? So the thing you can't attach a price tag to is your knowledge of how to rebuild these things. I mean, someone will charge you $500 an hour, $200 an hour,
Yep.
whatever. But you yourself learning how to do these things is going to be priceless because then you can teach an employee to do it that you pay
Right.
$15 an hour to fix it, and they'll do just as good of a job. So, it might benefit you to do that beforehand, to do the research beforehand. Cause then when you're going into it, you're not worried about, what pieces are going to not work when it's pivotal to work.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
I think if you're looking for a list, and Ben, I know you're gonna jump in right here. If you're looking for a list, if you're thinking about like what equipment should I be looking for, if you'll just drop us a message on social, you can DM us at any of our social medias and ask for, hey, ideal equipment list, and I'll just send you that. We'll just send you that for free. That way you have access to thinking through things. And we have a guy that works on our team at the Collab team that is actually a procurement agent, you know what I mean? Where he's always looking on the different places like eBay or like Facebook Marketplace or, a couple backwoods channels of ways that we see coffee shops that are starting to offload equipment, or maybe they're shutting
Mhm.
down. And then you roll into a boon of an opportunity because they're just trying to realize their cash again. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you can find some really great deals. So realize you're probably gonna have to put in some time to find the used equipment, and you always want to bench test anything, and you always want them to open up the machine and be able to see, has this been gone through with preventative maintenance over the last however many years they've been using it? But there really are some great deals out there with used, but it can be painstaking for the fixes. Hey, experts, we've got something really awesome that we do here at Coffee Experts Club, and that's called the My First Drive Through Coffee masterclass. So if you're opening your next coffee shop, I think a lot of times you may think to yourself, I know what goes into opening a coffee shop. I've been doing this for years, but maybe you've been doing it for somebody else. And maybe this is your first option of starting a coffee shop on your own. Or maybe you don't know anything about coffee and you're just like, I'm looking for a good investment opportunity. Starting a coffee shop seems like a good place to put it, and you're going to enter into it. But what you don't know is all the things that you don't know, right? And so what we've done with this masterclass is taken behind the scenes, how you find your first location, what you need to be thinking about in finding a location. We give you a gift in the masterclass where it's a step-by-step process of how you're opening your coffee shop, the different checkpoints you need from coming up with your plans and talking with the city and then negotiating a lease. And then how do you build a team and what are the different pieces you need to be thinking about? It's a great masterclass, door to door, start to finish, completely free on opening up your next coffee drive-through. So check it out. It's at myfirstdrivethrough.coffee, and it's a great masterclass. You won't regret it. We'll see you on the inside there. Ben, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you're looking to start, and one of the best ways to get in is taking over, a previous business that's slowing down. I think that was one of our most profitable locations. It wasn't the most busy, but it was the most profitable location. Was a company that they just couldn't make work, and they were literally just looking for somebody to get them out of their lease and give them a little bit of a nugget as they went. That was the West Richland location. So
Dude, we
moved in.
killed it at West Richland. We made so much money at West Richland for the lease that
And
we got in because they negotiated a cheap. Remember how cheap that lease was?
yep. And the beautiful thing was they said, take all the equipment with you. We don't need it. We just want out. And so if you can find that beautiful twofer of like, hey, just get us out of this business. We hate it. It's not working for us. We don't want to have to try and deal with this equipment. You take the equipment to take over the lease, give us a small nugget of a buyout, and you can have it. I mean, that's a golden goose. So it's not going to come along every time, but if you can, in those situations, if you can negotiate, the equipment along with the building that you're moving into, that can really cut down on some of that, cost up front. And then, if it has an espresso machine that's coming with the agreement, well, then you've got that extra reserve for maybe a backup machine just in case, that one goes
Right.
down. But wherever you can, try and negotiate, hey, can I get some of this equipment too? Like, let me take this off your hands. What are you going to do with 4 industrial blenders? Are you going to make soups at home all day, every day? Just let me know. So try and negotiate those, especially like we were saying in getting creative, like see what you can just ask people for. Like, hey, what would you need for me to be able to keep the espresso machine too? All right, that's doable. It's probably cheaper than buying a whole new machine yourself.
Yeah, I think that the key is, I hope what you're hearing as you're listening to all these things is, the way we started was, and we got like 3 or 4 or 5 people that asked us the same question. And that was, hey, not sure how to start, not sure what the cost is going to be. How can I do it for on the cheap? What are we looking like on the pricing? And I hope what you're hearing is, I don't know that there's a slam dunk answer for any of those things because it really depends on what
Mhm.
kind of business are we talking about? Are you talking about something that immediately you want to start working full time? Is it something that you even intend to work yourself? Because
Mhm.
there's a whole argument to be made for it's probably cheaper. And I talk about this a lot on Coffee Experts Academy. There could be an opportunity where it's actually cheaper for you to kick off the business and hire a kid to work it who has a lower cost because that's going to drop your labor rather than you that maybe want to make more money and it's going to be more expensive depending on if you already are into things that are expensive. I think that opening a business is a decision, right? And it's going to hit you one way or another. The big thing is thinking through where do I want it to hit me? Do I want it to
Mhm.
hit my pocketbook? Do I want it to hit my time? Do I want it to hit my energy? Am I willing to put in some sleepless nights? Drew, as an owner, Coffee de los Mayas, has put in sleepless freaking nights, and it has cost him. But we're on this side of it, super excited about how well Coffee de los Mayas is doing down the first drive-through coffee in Belize. Like that's something to be proud of. We're proud of that. So I think
Mhm.
it just depends on what you're looking to do and where you want to put your time.
Mhm. And I think, I mean, those are just super important questions to ask yourself before you start anything like this, because if that's what gets me through those nights, that's what I think when I'm thinking like, how am I even going to fix this thing that I don't know how to fix, because that's been a situation more than once. And just like we tell our kids in the coffee shop, our mission statement is what keeps the business itself going the direction that it's going, but for you personally as an owner, what is it that you're wanting to get out of this and why are you jumping into this? Because those questions are going to be how you answer those difficult questions to yourself when you're like, how do I make this next decision? How do I decide on this or that? Or, this late night is upsetting, but in the long run, because of because of this goal I have or because of this value that I have in this business, it makes it much easier for me to do those things. But otherwise, I wouldn't want to stay up till midnight all the time working on machines.
It's true. No, it's like, it's know your limitations, right? Like if you're looking to start a new coffee business and you're saying, I don't have the cash to start this. Do I have then the sweat and the time? Or I don't have the sweat and the time to do this. Do I then have the cash? Like there's something's got to move either which way. So know your limitations on like, if I don't have 2 out of the 3, okay, then how more creative can I get? If I've got, time out the yin, all I've got is time, and then I can probably make up for some of the cash and some of the energy. If I'm young, I'm probably in my 20s and I'm, staying up till 2 a.m. tinkering is what I do on a daily basis. And I could probably make it work, but you got to know what your limitations are there.
And I would say too, like as we kind of wind up the show today, maybe we could talk just for a minute and riff on like partnerships versus trying to do things on your own. Like I know that partnerships are something that you want to enter into very, very carefully. Like
Mhm.
because obviously it's like a marriage, right? And if you have a breakup, like it's tough because all of your stuff is tied to the same pool of cash, the same equipment that was purchased, the same decision. So I would say don't hastily enter into partnerships. But I would say the best thing I ever did was partnering up with Drew on Coffee de las Mayas because like there's obviously a difference in age between me and Drew, right? And like I've got my own business with the Collab team and we do coffee consulting. We do it all throughout the United States. We offer a lot of it, with coffee consulting. But this was our first venture of going out and doing it on our own. And I don't have the time. I don't have the ability just to pick up and move to Belize, which it was going to require one of us to be down there more often than the other. Drew's at a station of life where there's some excitement in that for him. Like he has the ownership and opportunity to make it exactly the way that he's always dreamed of and wanted. And we have a trust between the two of us of we get to bounce things off each other. I can't tell you how much communication Drew and I have on a daily basis, bouncing things off of each other as a partner, and I think that it's so healthy to not have to be in something by yourself. If I had to make all the decisions on my own, I'm going to have a limited scope of how I see things. And same thing with Drew, like he's going to have a limited scope. And there's sometimes where you're in the thick of it where you're like, man, I just wish I had somebody I could bounce this off of that could help me make a decision. So partnerships aren't bad. If you don't have a partner and you're in a business right now and you're like, hey, I would love to have somebody I could trust, like we would love to help you. Coffee Experts is here for the sake of helping people like you. The Collab team with consulting, we're willing to come in alongside you and help you. But I think that more than anything, I would say, realize that even the structure of your business is, you don't have to be an island. You don't have to do it all alone. Find people you can trust and rely on. And I think that was one of the biggest gifts that Wes Hayden gave to me with Roasters is that he invited me into this thing that he was feeling really overwhelmed with. And that began this trajectory for me of coffee, where I got to see a really underbelly side of things, help him build out all his operations, which then helped me help coffee shops downstream and then open up some of our own. So realize there could be opportunities where you're just going to tuck into somebody underneath their wing, learn some things, and then maybe go out and do a venture and then call back on friendships that could link up with other partners downstream. So I think realize you don't have to do it by yourself. It's not necessarily fixed to one fixed dollar amount. And there are a lot of different options. Don't let something like money slow you down on your dreams. Really realize there's a lot of different options out there. So Ben, Drew, privilege always. Thank you for joining us on Coffee Experts today. You guys are always invaluable. Drew, your internet was a little bit in and out. We heard everything you said, even if you froze up a little bit on us every once in a while.
Yeah.
And man, Coffee Experts, I hope you guys enjoyed listening today. Tune in next time. We'll see you here on Coffee Experts Club.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.